Hi, Hana family. Welcome back. I do hope you have been enjoying these episodes as much as I have been enjoying recording them. I have some good stories today. Stories that I enjoyed reading through and recording. I think you'll enjoy them as much as I did. So sit back, enjoy the show, and at the end of it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. My family and I live in Georgia. My sister came to visit while my husband was stationed in Iraq. We went to visit Midway, Georgia. They have a museum and a cemetery that are very old. During the Civil War, soldiers used the cemetery to keep their cattle and their horses. There are hundreds or maybe thousands of people buried in that cemetery. Basically, people are buried on top of people. We went to the cemetery after visiting the house and the church, and as we walked into the side of the cemetery, I felt pain in my chest. It was not a sharp pain, just a dull, annoying pain. We walked around and looked at pretty much all of the stones. The whole time I had this pain. At one point, under one of the trees, the pain became very sharp, but subsided as I walked away from that spot. We walked out the front of the cemetery, and the pain was gone. I didn't say a word about the pain to my sister until we left the cemetery. A couple days later, she was doing some research about the cemetery, and she told me a story that she told me I had to sit down before she read it to me. She told me that there were forbidden lovers that would meet in the cemetery late at night, so the girl's father would not find out. Unfortunately, the father did end up finding out, and he went to the cemetery and waited. The first one that showed up was the boy. The father stabbed the boy and left him to die. When the daughter found her lover, she took that same knife and stabbed herself. They were found under the tree that I felt the sharp pain under. That is the only possibly paranormal experience I've ever had. I don't consider myself a sensitive person, but in that case, I was the only one who felt anything. When I think about it, I still get chills. Story 2. The Bridge. As a lifetime resident of this town, I know the good and I know the bad. It's a very haunted place with a very dark history. The story goes back to around 1802. Our little town was only about 11 years old at this point. It was winter and cold, and two young lovers met nightly at a secret spot. Reason being, their families were rivals, and they absolutely despised each other. But their young love was too much to be reckoned with. The couple was so in love that they met as much as possible down near the river, even on the coldest and stormiest nights. They had to be very careful about their meeting so not to get caught. So they had a method for their meeting. When they were to meet, one of them would light a single white candle near the river's edge. There was a path near the river, so when the other walked down it at night, if they saw the candle burning, they knew they would soon have to meet at the spot. Things started to get rough for the girl's family. Food was scarce, and feuding with the other family was getting worse. So on a very dreaded stormy night, she went off to light the candle. She really wanted to see and hold her lover, so that, for at least a few fleeting moments, her problems would go away. The river's waters were especially high, and the current was strong and swift that night. While bending over to place a candle near the river's edge, she lost her balance and fell in. Moments later, she had drowned. On his walk on the path, he noticed the candle burning and hurried to their spot. He waited for hours, but the girl never showed. So he went home for the night. Early the next morning, her body was discovered, much further down the river, by a local fisherman. Wearing a simple white dress, her icy blue eyes staring off at nothing, as if looking for her soulmate. When he heard of this news, he rushed to the body. His life was over for him. His soulmate was gone. Later that night, he went to the river's edge, where they had always placed their candles, lit a single white candle, and then he hung himself from a nearby oak tree. And that's the story of two young lovers whose lives ended much too soon. But that's not the last that was seen or heard from them. Numerous accounts of ghostly activities have occurred at the spot where the candles were lit. At night, usually around midnight, you will see a woman in a white dress wandering near the river's edge. Reports of people seeing and trying to talk to her usually end with her vanishing before their eyes. One thing is always the same. They always speak of how icy blue her eyes are. His ghost is a bit scarier than hers. Reports of his ghost go that on stormy nights you will see a pale young man lighting a white candle near the river's edge. When spoken to, he will turn and face you, only to reveal a black void where his eyes should be. Then he vanishes. Other strange occurrences that happen near the spot. Voices can be heard. Dim lights can be seen moving around in the dark. Screams have been heard. Many nights crying and sobbing is heard near the river's edge. And sometimes, late at night, if you're standing on the bridge looking into the water, you'll swear that you see a woman with icy blue eyes looking up at you from the bottom of the river. Story 3. South Africa. This haunting is on a long, dusty road with no houses on either side, just large, really, really large trees. You drive about 500 meters up the road, and then you come to an opening. On your left, where an old house used to be. There's just the foundation on the ground now. You stop on the side of the road in your car, and you wait. If you flicker your lights once or twice, you see far in the distance a small, moving light. One of a motorbike. But you hear no sound from a motorbike. And you see no bike. The light moves closer and closer towards you, and then disappears. Again, you flicker your lights, and the light appears again, but this time it's right in front of you. As it approaches your car, it seems to go right through your car, and then disappears again. At this point, you're terrified. And you'll most likely leave in a hurry. Some of the brave even get out of their car and have a walk around. The best time to go is after midnight, and when you stop your car, you must leave your lights off, and the engine mustn't be running. If you carry on up the road, you will notice that there are no signs of life. No place for some person to be playing a trick on anyone. No place for someone to go or to come from. When you see the light, you can quickly drive straight towards it. It will disappear. You can try to catch the person who's playing the prank, and you will come to this conclusion, that there is no person, and there is no trick. As he haunts the road, there is no noise to be heard, and no harm comes to anyone who dare go there. It's just the light of a lonely, heartbroken soul. The story came about many years ago. On this particular road, a family of a mother and father and 2 sons lived on one side, and directly across lived a mother, father, a daughter, and 2 sons. The son from one side and the daughter from the other fell deeply in love, but had to keep it a big secret from the families, because their families despised each other. They were lovers for years, and he would go out riding on his motorbike and meet her out in the plots far from their parents. One fateful day, the brothers of the young girl followed her to her meeting place and caught the 2 lovers. They didn't let their presence be known, but came up with a wicked plan to stop this love affair. They went home and got some wire, and they tied it to a tree on one side of the road, stretched it across the road, and tied it to a tree on the other, so when the young boy came speeding down on his motorbike, he would ride straight into the wire, slicing off his head. But on that day, he had allowed his lover to ride his bike, and he sat on the back. As they came speeding up the road, neither of them were aware of their fate. The wire sliced straight through her neck, slicing off her head, slicing his throat, without quite killing him. As the bike tumbled to the ground, he stood up, holding his bloodied neck, realizing what had happened to his love. He picked her up, head and all, carried her across to her own house, where her brothers were hiding, and her parents were working without any knowledge of the mishap. And there, under one of those huge trees in the garden, he lay her to rest, and died minutes later in her arms. Every night since that day, he has haunted that road on his motorbike. He rides up and down. Maybe he's looking for revenge. Maybe he's just a lost soul blaming himself for that fateful day. No one's quite sure what came of the brothers or the rest of the family, or where the 2 lovers ended up being buried. I've witnessed this haunting, and I've sat there in my car with friends and watched the light appear and move straight towards us and through our car. And my heart aches for those young lovers.